There seems to be a pretty commonly held misconception out there, at least in my opinion, that if you're a federal government worker, then you can just coast, in quotes, which means that you just show up to work, do the bare minimum, and collect a paycheck because that's all you care about. Now, if the question is, can you coast? Short answer, if you're not interested in seeing the rest of the video, is yes, you can. I know people and I work with people that are well into their 60s that are at the GS-14 level, which is the highest non-supervisory pay grade that you can reach, and who intentionally choose to stay there without applying for promotions and even turning down promotions because they don't want to have to manage people. Now, the long answer is, however, that it depends on a number of factors, some of which are obvious, including the agency you work for, the pay grade that you're at, and the job that you're doing. So if you're, say, doing data entry at the GS-9 level, then it's probably going to be a little easier for you to coast without too many people asking very many questions because they don't really expect that much out of you in the first place. Whereas if you're, say, a GS-15 managing a team of 10 or 12 people, then you're probably going to be subject to a little bit more scrutiny. Some agencies are a little bit more laid back, in quotes, because their leadership might be fostering an environment like that, or maybe the mission of the agency doesn't directly and immediately impact the lives of everyday Americans, whereas other agencies may be different. Maybe they are supervised directly by the President of the United States or something like that. So the cultures will definitely be different. And with higher standards come higher expectations, which means it's harder to coast. Now, it is important to keep in mind that a fair amount of GS positions, non-supervisory ones at least, do have unions backing them up, which means it's much harder to fire you, and most management will not bother looking for excuses to get rid of you because it just takes too much work. So it is a little easier for you to coast in those cases. However, it's important to note that not all those positions do have unions, which means although it is relatively harder to fire you than it is in the private sector, if you're coasting and somebody in management doesn't like that, they can very well initiate some corrective action to try and get rid of you. But the one thing I think is most frequently overlooked in all of this is the impact that coasting can have on your career, because it's not without consequence, at least in most cases. In other words, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. So if you are ambitious and you want to get promoted and move up and make more money, have access to all sorts of different details and positions and projects, what have you, then you have to go above and beyond. So for me personally, ever since I got to my current position, I've maintained a very high level of ambition because I don't want to just coast at the same pay grade for the rest of my career. So in having gone that extra mile and voluntarily working extra hours and showing that I'm worthy of earning what I've gotten so far, which includes a promotion from one grade to the next, and I'm in line to possibly and most likely achieve another one here very soon, multiple within grade increases, monetary performance-related awards, exceeding performance evals, you name it. But the piece that complements hard work is the reputation that you have. So if you give it your all, then you will have generally a good reputation amongst your coworkers and your leadership. But if you just do the bare minimum, then it's going to be the opposite. And speaking from experience, I can tell you that both your coworkers and leadership will notice that that's the type of person that you are. And so you won't have access to all those opportunities we talked about earlier. And although you might still be able to keep that paycheck, you never know when things will change in the future where you might actually need more money or perhaps even a reference to have to go somewhere else. So it does much more damage than it's actually worth. So to wrap up, although coasting in the federal government is at least a little easier than it is in the private sector, I highly recommend against it. So hope that helps. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.